Hey y'all, welcome back to Profit and Purpose Live. I'm Evolve Benton, the Speaking for Profit strategist, and I am looking forward to today's conversation, y'all. We're talking a little bit about ADHD and building confidence as a public speaker. And I have a special guest here who is a professional and who is going to guide us through what exactly is ADHD, how do we build more confidence, and how do we utilize it as a superpower in our business, which I'm really excited about. So y'all, if you're watching now, just go on and put hashtag live in the comments. If you're watching the near and dear future, put hashtag replay. And if you're on my favorite platform, YouTube, make sure that you like and subscribe. As many of you know, we did a 10-day sprint recently where we talked about how to create an impact on one of my favorite all-in-one platforms, which is Kajabi, by creating digital assets, ebooks, and even coaching services to be able to support your clients. So during that 10-day sprint, we hit 700 subscribers. So I just want to thank all of the new subscribers for subscribing to the Speaking for Profit YouTube channel. I really appreciate you using your most valuable resource, which is your time with us, and taking this skill set and learning how to get financially free. So thank you so much for the new subscribers. Shouts out to y'all. And then I also want to shout out all of the new people who are a part of the Profitable Speaker Circle from the Black Trans Advocacy Conference that I was at last week. I had an opportunity to go to Dallas, Texas, and to present on the power of public speaking and monetizing your message. And y'all, my session was at 9:30 in the morning, which is really hard when it comes to a conference where folks are there to, of course, learn, but also to experience Black trans joy. So I appreciate the small group of you that woke up at 9:30 in the morning and came to my presentation, showed support, learned, and you actually got a gift, right? Which was access to the Profitable Speaker Circle. So folks, if you see me speaking in the near and dear future in your area, in the world, around the country, please come through because I'm always going to give value and I'm always going to give a gift. But I just want to shout out all of those folks who are new to the community, but also new to the YouTube channel. So thank y'all so much for being here again. I'm going to bring up our guest for today. This person is an S4P alum, actually one of the first people to hit our Speaking for Profit stage that we had in Atlanta, Georgia, an ADHD coach, an amazing speaker. And it's an honor to have them on the show. So Sammie, welcome so much. Welcome to the community. Welcome to our YouTube channel. We're finally doing it, y'all. Like we have been talking about this interview for almost a year now, and it's happening. And I'm just so excited to have you here.
I'm so excited as well. Finally on the Speaking for Profit podcast. That's been one of my goals for a minute here. We've been chasing each other, but here we are now.
Yes, I'm so happy you can make it. And, you know, we started doing this particular segment of the Speaking for Profit podcast on profit and purpose because, you know, I really am a firm believer that in order for us to have a business that's not just profitable by the numbers, but that feels abundant, it has to be purpose behind it. And that's why I'm excited to have you, because what I appreciate about you and your brand and Speak Y'all is that you're not just trying to like teach people to build confidence. You really have a purpose and a vision that is deep. So thank you for doing the labor of being a CEO and building your business. And thank you so much for being here.
Well, Evolve, thank you so much. And the Wealthy Speakers Program overall for helping me really up level to so much more of that CEO. You can be a CEO, but not feel like a CEO, right? You can say you're a founder, say you're an owner, and not truly embody what it means to carry yourself and host the boundaries that you need to be able to, again, not make just profit, but really work with purpose.
Yeah, I shaded that. So tell me a little bit about, I don't think I've ever asked you this question, but how did you start public speaking? Like what's your origin story when it comes to that?
My villain origin story you're asking for?
Yes.
I'll have to say my core origin, I didn't even actually know about this myself. One of my high school teachers told my mom this. My mom's also a teacher. So within the same school district, all the teachers are being like super chismosas. They're all gossipy and whatnot. And when I was in middle school, my mom was a teacher at the middle school. She saw me in action. I was pretty shy. I didn't speak up that much. I think I held something to being like my mom's daughter, and there's a teacher in the school, things like that. But once I was in high school, there was this one after school session I was invited to join where as a high schooler, I was mentoring some middle schoolers. and I tell you this, I don't even remember this happened. But apparently I was mentoring some middle schoolers and highlighting the transition to high school and talking about my psychology classes that I really enjoyed. And my psychology teacher in high school noticed that I completely had shifted. She noticed that I was like super engaged, that I had a lot more of an extroverted energy than she had realized, and that I just really locked in that moment, if you will, of being with those young students. And since that moment, I just felt like apparently I had opened up quite a bit more in high school. I connected with my friends. People then knew me as an extrovert. I felt like my words had weight, if you will. And so I think my speaking origin story really comes from recognizing the weight of my voice, even as a young person, recognizing that I had something to say that people wanted to listen to. And that made me really excited. So moving from that high school experience of really connecting to who I am, because I would say who I am at my core is an extrovert. There was just times where I felt really locked back or really hidden because I was a little bit worried about people's perception, or again, I was my mom's child and she's a teacher in the school, all that. Moving from then, like throughout high school and college, I took on so many mentorship and workshop roles. I worked in my career center all throughout undergrad as a career peer mentor. So I was teaching students how to work on their resumes and their cover letters and their LinkedIns and their interviews. But I started noticing that a lot of students talk shit about themselves. They don't understand the value their experiences have. They'll come with a half-done resume and say, I'm half-done person. I'm not worth getting a role. I'm not worth anything. And through having conversations, just asking them a little bit more about, hey, what did you enjoy about this internship? Or, hey, what do you like about your classes? What are some of the projects you've engaged in? They just started talking about what they cared about. They started talking about the things that they were good at. And I just started reflecting some of the things they said and translating it just a little bit, right, to some like career or resume language, if you will. And those students, oftentimes my peers are actually upper class students. I'd be like a sophomore talking to a senior who felt like they couldn't get a job. They'd pause and then they would say, I never thought about myself like that. I never realized I had experience. I didn't realize I was good at different things. And so
you're telling me you've been coaching people for almost 30 years, because you started in middle school.
Maybe not middle school, but I like to say that I started coaching at 18. And I know for a lot of people, they find coaching as a profession later in life. And I'm extremely grateful that my first ever job was coaching, and that the thorough line of every role I've had, especially since I have a long career in higher education and student affairs, career services, is that there's always been that coaching and mentoring piece, and also that educating and workshop public speaking aspect that I've always really enjoyed.
Yeah. And I think what's really great about this particular story for you is like you had the moment where you felt like your voice didn't matter as much, right? And then when you had that conversation with those young people, you're like, oh, actually, my voice matters. And you moved into it. So I think you also can support folks probably who have a fear of public speaking or have some type of trauma that's connected to it. Sometimes I'll have conversations with, and you probably see this as well as a coach, with folks where it's not a fear, but it's connected to a negative experience. So they just don't like, right? They'll be like, I spoke that one time in middle school and everyone ignored me, or no one clapped, or people booed me, right? It'll come from a bad or just like a really traumatic experience on stage that they've internalized that they don't feel good about. So I'm so thankful that folks have you when it comes to the fear of public speaking, right? Like I know you've read the stats, like 85%. Some people are more fearful of that than actually dying. Believe it or not.
That's a huge one.
How do you support clients with that? Or do you support clients with that when they come to you and they want to position themselves as a better communicator?
Yeah. So when it comes to communication, I usually have two types of like reasons why people come in for coaching. The number one most common reason folks come to me for coaching is the fear of public speaking. And that can come from a different areas or angles, right? So you mentioned like a negative experience or trauma. And of course, therapy can be really supportive for like very specific traumas. However, a lot of times it might be less trauma and a lot more just a belief system that's not supporting them, right? Oh, my voice isn't going to matter. You know what? Let me just focus on the things that I'm good at already. So, for example, a lot of folks I work with are really high level in their organizations. They're executives, they're founders, they're vice presidents, usually in more like technical areas. So I would have someone who, hey, I'm a cybersecurity expert. Let me hide behind everything I know for cybersecurity. Let me give promotions. Let me delegate other people to speak instead of me. Let me make sure other people get the spotlight. Let me just focus on what I'm good at in the background. But what they realize is it's not only impacting their career experience where they're working or where they want to move forward, where they're not seen as that leader because they're not showcasing executive presence because they're not really in the room. But what I also find, and this is actually pretty sad, is a lot of times folks actually curtail any opportunity to be visible outside of work. So I've had clients who they would never take the impromptu speech at a cousin's wedding, or their church asked them to speak related to their career or their success story, and they were too afraid to do so. So they realized over time it's not just impacting their promotion and leadership, but it's also impacting their ability to make good moves in their community and support their community.
Yeah, and support their family, right? Like at
Yeah.
that wedding. So a couple of months ago, maybe even longer than that, you and I were in conversation and you told me you were getting a new certification to be able to support folks with ADHD. And I've been in business probably about 10 years now. I think about 10 to 12 years,
Mhm.
5 years officially, definitely as like a full-time, right,
Yay. Always
entrepreneur,
celebrate milestones like
right?
that.
Always celebrate that. And even though like most folks don't come to me with a diagnosis, when I am on onboarding calls with folks, they will
Mhm.
say, I struggle with ADHD. I get overwhelmed very easily. Can you tell me a little bit more about how I can support myself? So when you said you were doing this certificate, I was really thankful that someone was taking the time to learn this. So one, can you tell us a little bit about like what ADHD is, and then how
Mhm.
does it show up for speakers and consultants?
Yeah. So for context, I'm currently in training through the ADHD or ADD Coach Academy. So it is the oldest running coach academy specifically for like ADHD, but also life coaching. So what I like to say is, hey, a lot of the things regarding ADHD coaching can help anyone. And that's what really drew me to doing it. So for example, if someone's experiencing a lot of stress in their life, they're experiencing sleep issues, that can impact some of their functioning where they exhibit some ADHD-like traits. So to answer your question, what ADHD is, it's a specific neurotype. So it's a very heritable condition. It's a neurotype that is related to our executive functioning. So what our executive functioning is, it's kind of like our management or project manager of the brain. So our project manager of the brain is doing what? It's getting us organized. It's helping us prioritize information. It's helping us with our working memory. So how do we hold memory in a short amount of time? It's also impacting things like impulse control, and even things like more recent research has been about ADHD can impact emotional regulation as well. So there's a lot of women who've been misdiagnosed of having borderline personality disorder when they've actually had undiagnosed ADHD, maybe an inattentive type. So that's a type that is a lot less known. It has a lot less like outward behaviors or symptoms, but the emotional dysregulation is coming from some of the executive functioning challenges from ADHD.
Wow. Okay. So what I'm hearing is ADHD been around.
Been around.
They've been misdiagnosing folks, of course, women, probably
Yes.
people of color as well.
Hmm.
But how does this show up in speakers, consultants, and CEOs? Like,
Mm.
where are you seeing that in your work?
Yeah. So when it comes to founders, CEOs, high level folks, a lot of folks who decide to become an entrepreneur, a lot of times there were so many ADHD challenges in traditional 9 to 5 work that it was inspiring to be able to create systems that work with one's own brain and not have like the tedium, the enforced routine. Maybe there was boredom that was coming from doing certain type of work, not having the autonomy to do higher level strategic work and being loaded with like a lot of administrative tasks that aren't super fun, that might be pretty repetitive or easy to master, but then you get bored of it. So I see it as that kind of like funnel into entrepreneurship is a big one. When we think about higher level executives, well, they're doing a lot of the big picture work, right? They're doing a lot of strategic thinking. They might be networking. They might be traveling. They have all these, a lot more access and autonomy to their schedule that's a lot more flexible than someone who might be earlier on in their career, right? Entry level, middle manager, supervisor as well. But when it comes to public speaking, I see ADHD coming in a bunch of different ways. I like to think of public speaking as a skill that's a big umbrella, because public speaking isn't just what you say. It's how you say it, how you look, your tone, your message, your goals. It can be something as minute as like those filler words that sometimes we worry about, but it can also be about how authentic we feel when we're talking about our speaking, how we do convey confidence. There are some folks who speak with a monotone and it's very effective, and some people who speak with a monotone and they want to address that and work on it. So with ADHD, I often see that some folks are so excited about what they want to talk about that they speak super fast. They go into a lot of detail. They don't pause. And then that's an overload of information, perhaps, for their audience. Sometimes for other folks, it might be a bit more of the perfectionism traits of ADHD and being afraid to even putting themselves out there, or feeling like they need to over prepare. There could be worries about time. Oh, I only have 15 minutes. How do I time and prioritize? Well, again, those are a lot of executive functioning tasks to do. It's just like, hey, speak. Okay, well, you just hit me with 100 subtasks that I wasn't aware of, right? And so it can be pretty overwhelming to navigate multiple roles, being a CEO and being a marketer and being a public speaker and managing one's own business, being a supervisor to employees in an organization. And so it can be tricky without having like a way to externalize your brain and make sure that there's automations, there's support, and there's ways that one can work with their own processing style.
I love that. I love that. You know what, Sammie? I think what I'm appreciating is that oftentimes when this comes up for CEOs, people will try to say that something's wrong with the CEO. Right. And I think what this really says is like, no, something's wrong with all these systems we've built. Right. Why doesn't all this stuff talk to each other anyways? Right. Like, why have we made it so complicated? So I'm a client and I come to you and I want to work with you. And I'm like, you know what? I think I've been diagnosed with ADHD. It hasn't impacted me thus far, but it does bother me in certain places in my life. Like, what's the process that what's the client journey when they start to work with you?
Yeah. So the client journey, whether it is like more just ADHD life coaching focused or even public speaking focused, is I often ask folks, just as a baseline, what do you know about your ADHD? And I think there's a big difference between what do you know about ADHD in general and what do you know about your ADHD, because it presents differently for a lot of folks. Actually, I'm going to be hosting a ADHD and mindfulness workshop sometime soon in a wellness based organization. And I was talking to a couple of folks, trying to get more of a sense if they might be interested in attending. And I was talking about ADHD. I was mentioning I was diagnosed as an adult. And one of the women looked at me and said, "But there's nothing wrong with you." And I was like, I think it can be very easy to be kind of reductionistic on both sides, right? Like, there's nothing wrong with you. You're not disabled. You're differently abled, or the like, it's a superpower inherently. When we talk about what's your ADHD, what I want to know from my client is, how do they define it? How do they view it? They might even use superpower language, and that's totally okay. I'm not going to judge. I want to use the language that client is using to move them forward. If they see it as a superpower, they see themselves as a superhero, let's use that analogy, right? Let's go for it and see how that analogy can help them function better, right? ADHD coaching, the core of it is not just like, okay, setting goals and hitting goals, short-term goals, long-term goals, but it's really addressing like, how do I create a life where instead of I'm just existing it, I'm living in it because I am adjusting my systems to make my daily functioning a lot better. So I do start with, what do you know about your ADHD? What are some of the challenges you're noticing? And then the next thing we focus on is strengths, because a lot of ADHDers do not know what they're good at, and sometimes might be even resistant to the fact that they're good at anything.
That's real. That's real, right? Because you're always analyzing yourself. Well, if that's your experience, right? I love that you're starting with the root of the problem and making it more personal and customized, because
Yeah.
I think what I see is a lot of like cookie cutter type of programs that don't really like look at the individual. They more look at it on a broader spectrum. So that's really, really dope and really exciting. So when we started working together, Sammie, right? Like you had Speak Y'all, and Speak Y'all was amazing, and it still is. But I think some of the growth that I've been able to see, especially since S4P Live, one of the things that you did during your time working with us was you hosted, a space where folks could get critiques on their speeches. And I definitely think that made the speeches so much better once we were in person. I probably will hit you up and try to bring you back when we have our next live event. I would love to do that. But I'm wondering, for you, being in that space, maybe what are 2 ways that you've seen yourself grow as a CEO? And for folks who are watching this and are thinking, you know what, I want to become a public speaker, I want to work with Evolve, what are things that they should be looking forward to and excited about?
I think one thing that's helped me so much grow as a CEO really has been working with my ADHD brain. Going through ADHD coaching training was a bit selfish, right? I have ADHD. What can I learn that helps me? But it also goes back to my own personal beliefs about coaching and training, which is I'm never going to give someone some type of exercise that I've never done myself. I'm not going to make my client a guinea pig in that regard. So knowing that it could be beneficial and supportive for me, or know, hey, this exercise is a little bit sticky, or hey, this is what I experienced, without making it the Sammie show, I think is really important in that regard. So part of that journey has been hiring my own ADHD coach, right? Just like I hired my own business coach and speaker coach, Evolve. I think it's very important for coaches to have their own coaches, because you just don't want to go into that, like, not only echo chamber, but that kind of negative echo chamber, right? Of that perfectionism and trying to maximize everything. Because the core of what supports ADHD is keeping things simple, right? It's very easy to get excited and have interest and find something novel and try to do 90 things at once. But having a bit of that power of the pause, that's what it's called. Maybe even just a bit of that mindfulness, take a step back and recognize, what is my capacity? With no judgment. It's very easy to say, what is my capacity? Oh, why can't I do what everyone else does? So I'd say working with my ADHD brain has been helpful. And one thing that truly has been helpful as well is it took 4 medications to find the one that's finally been supportive for me. And not everyone wants to use an ADHD medication, right? And I think that's part of their journey. And it's not something I A, literally prescribe, but B, like metaphorically prescribe as something that someone has to do. But I've found that with more supports, with a great therapist, great ADHD coach, with finally the right type of medication, I can work on my business every single day. And I don't even say I work in my business consistently, because some days I work in it for 3 hours, some days I work in it for 30 minutes, some days for 5 hours. But it's completely shifted my confidence, because I am truly a CEO because I'm working in my business every day. That's how I define it. And that's what helps me build my confidence. And so I hope as a coach, I can help people understand what helps them feel confident. What does it mean to be a CEO for them? So I'd say that has been big for me. Let's see, another thing, I guess this is also kind of related to ADHD, but just exercising quite a bit more. I've really enjoyed it. And so really investing some of that like personal time into like taking care of myself, trying new things. I do seek novelty as well. So I tried a new improv class. I tried pole fitness for the past 8 weeks, and it's super
That's your
fun.
core strong, right?
Core strong, many bruises on my thighs. That is for sure. So I've been enjoying that quite a bit, and recognizing that like life really is an open world video game. Like I don't have to wait and say like, oh, well, until I hit this, then I can do this interesting hobby. It's like, why don't I just do it now and actually have a life that I enjoy?
I know that's right. So for you, you're still working at your institution too, right? So it's
Yes,
the
I'm still
balance.
working full time.
Yeah, so it's the balance of being in higher education, but also
Ooh,
being a coach, right? And
yes.
also, like, you have your own speaking business where you're out and you're sharing your story and you're sharing
Mhm.
with the world, which is really powerful as well. So you're juggling many things as a CEO. And I think what I'm hearing from you is you're finding your own unique balance in ways
Yeah.
that you can take care of yourself, take care of your clients, and take care of your business, which is super powerful. I mean, it's an honor to be able to like really like, work with you, support you on the business side. And I think what you really added to that space and that environment, right, in our mastermind was always thinking about how to simplify things a little bit.
Mhm.
And I always appreciated that question of like, do we need that many steps? And I hope that you're able to continue to take that in your business. I think it even has helped me. That's what I love about mastermind spaces in
Yes.
particular is like, it's not just about like Evolve being the expert. I mean, I feel like I'm an expert in my own things, but I learned so much from you all as clients that allow me to be a better CEO as well.
Yeah, well, I what I'm hearing overall evolve is the core is respect. We're
Yeah.
in your container, but you have so much respect for us and we have so much respect for you that we feel comfortable teaching each other. You don't
Mhm.
see it as some type of upfront that I ask questions and I encourage change as we go along, right? I think you recognize that you bring in really smart, really passionate, very capable people who want to make significant change and who faced a lot of challenges. And I think it's that core of respect and knowing like, hey, I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt if that comes off just a tiny bit direct. But I think overall, especially because everyone is working and focusing on being a speaker, most of the time people's communication skills are pretty solid.
Yeah, that's usually not the issue is people not speaking. Is actually, all right, y'all, we got to get off this call. Be
But
quiet.
I must
So
verbally process this.
right, exactly. One of the things that I've really appreciated recently, and I don't know if you've seen, Zoom has this new AI function where
Mhm.
it kind of grabs the summaries of calls. So we've
Yeah.
started to turn that on. And what I love about it is, for the person who sometimes watching that whole video of a replay, I don't think that people want to do it. I know I'm not the person when I'm in coaching programs. I don't go back and watch all those replays, but having just a simple summary is something that I think has been more accessible for our clients. So I'm excited to continue to lean into AI. And I'm wondering for you, do you know I know you mentioned automation and different tools. Are there
Mhm.
any AI ADHD particular like softwares that you learned about or that folks are using to support them with automation and organizing things a little bit better?
Mm. One thing I'll say about the AI notes on Zoom, because I use them as long as
Mm.
clients are comfortable with that, is sometimes my clients ask for those. So I know it's supporting my clients as well of having some type of log of what we've talked about, making it a little bit easier for them to parse and process. And I think that's a big part of inclusion, right? Is like you said, like not everyone might have the bandwidth to watch a video. I know for me, if I'm watching a recording, it will be on like 1.7 speed so I can get through it. And if there's like a group breakout or whatever, I'm skipping through that and whatnot. But having those notes can absolutely be a game changer just to make it a little bit easier for folks to know, hey, what should I be following up on? What should I be going into? But regarding tools, I know one I use with my clients for public speaking specifically. It's called Udly AI.
Mm.
You can try it for free, and then if you decide you want to do a bunch of recordings, you can go into a more premium version. But it's nice because it gives you data. It gives you a snapshot. You can do a practice run of a speech, or you can practice impromptu speaking, and it gives data on things like your pacing, your volume, your filler words, your weak words. It even more recently will generate follow-up questions. So like what are fair game questions someone in your audience may ask? And I find that really helpful, but I also use it very strategically because like I told you, Evolve, I try to keep things simple. And so I usually use that at the start before we start coaching to scan a baseline video and then at the end of coaching. Because what I don't want someone to do is hyper focus on specific data points. But I had 3 filler words, and last week I had 2. Like again, going into that maximization or perfectionism, but it can be really helpful to have that type of snapshot, because what folks really want is that transformation, right? And when it comes to the transformation, one of the best ways for someone to understand it is to see it. And so reviewing recordings can be absolutely helpful. Like, I know toward the end of our program, we not only had, in the middle of the program, the live speeches, but you also encouraged us all to have kind of closing speeches as well. And I can imagine like you sharing that closing speech with someone compared to maybe the first time they interacted. You can see just from the body, you can turn off the audio and just see the energy and see the body language shift and how much confidence the knowledge and the tools have helped them out with. So it looks like your audience is asking a little bit more about the tool. It's usually AI, YOODLI.ai. Pretty cool tool. I enjoy that quite a bit for speaking specifically.
Yeah, definitely. I've used it a couple of times to support folks in more like private coaching. And then we did like a open mic before, and we gave people feedback at an open mic. I love it as well. I think it's a great tool, but I think you're right. I think that it can kind of be a little bit on the professionalism lens and pull authenticity out of people.
Yes.
So you have to be creative on how you use it. But someone else shared something as well. They says, as someone who had a later diagnosis, this speaks to me. Thank you so much for sharing your personal experience. I've been struggling to find the correct medication. As someone who is on the road of becoming a CEO, this is sound advice. So people are giving you love. That's one of our LinkedIn users. So shout out to the folks that are watching on LinkedIn as well. Sammie is on LinkedIn, so please follow her. That would be a great way to stay connected. And Sammie, tell folks how they can work with you, right? Like if they're listening to this and they're like, I need this coaching, like I need you immediately. How do they get access to your work, to your program, to get support?
Little old me. Absolutely. Let's connect. So one of the best ways to reach out to me would be my website, which is speakyall.com. I promise everyone in the next couple of months, I am updating the website to include my ADHD coaching information, but I am actively taking clients for ADHD coaching. And because I am in certification, it is paid coaching, but it is at a reduced rate to account for my learning, account for recordings, things like that. So I would say reaching out to me. LinkedIn is great. My website is great as well. You can use a contact form or actually directly book a call using my Calendly as well. But I'm more than happy to help you untangle just a little bit of who are you? What are your strengths? What are the things that ADHD is bringing into your life? And how can you be so much more of a confident person, let alone a confident speaker?
Definitely. Yeah, I cannot promote this any more than I probably would. Sammie is a brilliant coach. When I tell y'all, those folks and people's speeches were amazing. The first drafts were actually pretty brilliant, like the stories that folks were telling, but the way that you held folks, like you didn't just coach them, you held them with your critiques, you gave them feedback, and it wasn't just about the words, it was about the pace. It was these very great questions that had even the person thinking like, what am I talking about? Like, which story do I want to tell? You are just a phenomenal coach in person. So folks, please support Speak Y'all. This is an amazing organization. And like Sammie says, whether you are ADHD or not, this is probably a great way for you to start looking at building confidence as a public speaker and as a communicator in general. Like if you are thinking about going to your cousin's wedding and not doing the speech, hire Sammie immediately, because you do not want to miss out on that opportunity to add value and add love to the people that you love and that bring you joy. So
and blow your family away. They're like, what was that?
Especially if you're the introvert and you're the person that they're not expecting to speak. And then you're like, I've got a speech. They're going to be like, what?
Evolve?
Definitely. Well, thank you so much, Sammie, for stopping by Profit and Purpose Live. I really appreciate you. Audience, thank you so much for being here, whether you're watching now live or in the replay, and using your most valued resource with us, which is your time. We'll head out, but until next time, peace.
Peace, y'all. Thank you.